Hey, what's going on, everybody, and welcome back to the Real Estate Real, my YouTube channel. Today we have Marissa again from Reliant Lending, so we'll welcome Marissa. How you doing today, Marissa?
I'm really great. Thanks for having me again. Yeah, good to be here. Good
Absolutely,
to see you.
absolutely. Yeah, it's always a fun time. So today, me and Marissa are here talking to you about leverage, and as you might know or might not know, of course, there is different terms for leverage in the real estate market, as well as in the lending industry as well. So there's different terms and different
Interpretations.
interpretations and perspectives that you'll get from the both of us. So I wanted to ask Marissa today, what would you think of when you start thinking of leverage in the lending industry?
Yeah, definitely. And when you did kind of talk to me about this topic, it is such a great topic, and it's so interesting how you and I, our notes were along the same path but very different, which is really awesome. So for me, what leverage means, or what I think of when I hear the word leverage, is essentially I think of mechanically using tools to make a job easier than it would be for you to do it maybe with your bare hands mechanically or by yourself, essentially. So essentially I see it as a way to get where you're going a little bit faster with tools.
Gotcha. And what tools do you utilize in your industry to
Yes.
leverage things?
So for me, I'm always focused on finances, right? I'm looking at the numbers, income, equity, everything related to numbers. So for me, what I think of is leveraging money, income, profit to put back into your investments. So using your own income and profits to get farther on your plan.
Absolutely. So when you're thinking of it, you're thinking of you're thinking of tools to utilize for investments. Are you thinking of, like we talked about before and discussed in other videos, like some sort of things like HELOCs, or what about like leveraging certain types of loans, or
Definitely. I think every situation is different. So yes, for me that looks like utilizing all the loan products I have. So with every situation, I take all the information, I look at it, and then I look at all the products that would be helpful. So some situations, some products might not come up, but others might, like HELOCs, refinancing, using private mortgage insurance to put down 3% versus 20%, kind of things like that. So yes, lots of loan products and tools within those products.
Right, absolutely. So in the industry you're in, you want to leverage any tools that you have as possible. And you were talking about a little bit about, we'll probably jump right into this now, how that works with planning and planning for your next estate and something like that.
Yeah, definitely. When you sit down to buy a home, usually you'll sit down with your agent and you'll have your buyer's consultation, and they pretty much are laying out the plan of action for this one purchase. Right. So what we like to do is, if you have a certain goal in mind, usually it takes some steps to get there. So when you're buying without a plan, it's kind of like going to a destination without directions. You may know the general direction, you may be going west, but there might be things that come up that you weren't aware of because you weren't utilizing tools. Maybe you weren't utilizing maps or a GPS system. That GPS system has a lot of tools. It's connected with everybody to tell you and show you what's going on so that you can adapt. Right. So not only plan, but expect to need to adapt.
Right.
I mean, look at where we're at right now. What do you think about what's going on right now?
Well, it's definitely it's interesting, and definitely, like you said, adjusting to the plan accordingly, because right now one of the things that we both have to utilize is a mortgage calculator, so that we can understand, of course, the interest rates going on right now, because it's been a huge spike in interest rates. Even since we've talked about it 2 months ago when it was about 4%, it's gone almost up to 6.4% now. And as you may or may not know, that actually you have to adjust for that and account for that because your mortgage is going to be a lot more expensive with, like we discussed in a previous video. If you have a $500,000 house now with a 6.4 mortgage, you're probably looking at about $3,500 to pay on a house instead of on a mortgage instead of what would have been $2,800 a couple months ago. So
exactly.
That's
a great example because something like that, it doesn't necessarily mean that the plan is derailed. It might mean that, okay, we're going to have to pay a little bit more than we expected and, buckle down a little bit more. And then, in a couple years, we're going to have to utilize the tools to refinance and get a really good rate. So it's not permanent. It's just part of the plan. It becomes part of the plan. Okay, now we need to account for this. We need to adjust and we need to, change direction a little.
Right. So you could definitely see the differences in how me and Marissa think in certain situations, of course. Because when I'm leveraging in real estate, I feel like I'm leveraging for the client most of the time. Depending on if it's the buyer or seller or not, there's a lot of ways that you could leverage a contract in real estate. We talk about how fast we need the loan to close. If the seller's looking for certain things when he's looking over the contract for the purchase of his property, he's looking at the buyer to pretty much be confident about the purchasing process as real estate agents. And, for buyers or sellers, we want to know that the deal is pretty much going to go through. So we're going to leverage the contract. So the loan amount is normally 17 days within the contract. But, we're going to leverage that so it's a faster close on the loan, of course, and on the escrow process. So we're going to want to shorten that to about 12 days. And by doing that, the seller generally knows that the buyer is more serious about doing this because he's putting the initial deposit in, of course, within the first 3 days. But it's only going to be 9 days after that where essentially, the loan's going to go through and that process is going to be taken care of. And after the appraisal's done, of course, then, the process is almost set in stone. Of course, it's not always there until it's there. We all know that in the real estate industry. But yeah, that's one of the ways. Also, like, there's a lot of topics that I could talk about because there's leveraging if, you're trying to sell your home and your offer is going to be contingent on pretty much the purchase of your home. The purchase of your next home is going to be contingent on selling your home. So you're going to have to leverage that, There's pretty much going to be, I'm looking for the term here, of course, but it's going to be pretty much based on the sale of your home, and you have to sell your home first before you could pretty much, purchase another home. So, yeah, I'm looking for a term that I'm just drawing a blank on right now, but so we're going to get back to that once I think of it.
Okay, wait, what's the...
A contingent offer, of course. So if you're trying to purchase a home and buy a new home, the offer is going to be contingent. You're going to have to leverage your purchase as a seller, and I'm trying to break down this process as much as possible. But so when you're purchasing a home, then if you want to sell your home at the same time, your offer on that purchase of the home is going to be contingent on whether you sell your home. So you're gonna have to leverage the fact that your home that you're currently selling is worth a lot as well, and that it's gonna sell in a proper amount of time, so that the other seller of the property that you're trying to purchase is aware that.
I see what you're saying. So you're saying even just owning the home and having that money secured in that property, a seller might be more willing because they know that those funds are there.
Right, exactly, and know that
that it's going to sell, and once it sells, we already know the loan versus the profit. The profits will exceed, and they will be able to plant that money right into
exactly
the next
because
property.
They have equity in their home right now. Of course, it's selling for more, and if their home sells for around at least the same price, they know that you're going to have money down, as well as they want to know that your home's already in the process of being sold. So there's certain things like that you can leverage as us in the real estate industry know, of course. So.
Definitely. Do you think that it's the same for people that are selling their homes? Is it important? How important is that for the contract for sellers?
So that's what I was kind of trying to explain in the process. There's going to be, when there's a contingent offer, there's going to be two sellers in the process, because there's going to be one seller where, of course, you're trying to purchase that seller's home, but also you're trying to sell your home at the same time. So when you're trying to sell your home, you're going to write an offer that's contingent on the sale of your home, so that you can purchase this new property. And of course, that seller that you're buying from, they want to know that, you know, the offer is pretty much, you know, your home's already on the market, you're marketing your home well, you're gonna have to use certain things for leverage like that. So it's a contingent offer based on the sale of your home. That's what we call it.
Oh, okay, I see it. Yes. So, you know, hearing us talk about it is one thing, and you know, you might be getting it, but a real life example might be helpful, or maybe it's not real life because the amount is not real life. But say, for example, you are buying a home for $100,000. So you're buying this one home for $100,000. You pay $100,000. Over the course of, say, 5 years, the home naturally appreciates in value, and say it's gone up $25,000 in value. So if you're able to sell that home, and you know, say you are able to take a profit of around $25,000, that's fantastic, and you can, you know, kind of take that, put it into another property, and kind of get the ball rolling. Another way you could go about that is if you were to take that same $100,000, and instead of buying one property, you bought 4 properties. And over the course of 5 years, those homes also appreciated in value. Obviously, you know, buying more houses means there might be more fees, there might be, you know, profit per property might be slightly less, but overall, you're still gaining more. And so, say you were to sell all 4 of those properties, you are able to profit $100,000 versus $25,000. So that's kind of an example of, you know, leveraging your money. You could do that by, you know, taking out equity from your home, because, you know, the equity is there. It's not necessarily helping or hurting you if it's just kind of sitting there. So if you have plans to expand your portfolio, take a look at the equity, and you know, maybe you might not like that you're going to have a higher interest rate now, but sit down and write out the numbers long term. You might be surprised that just because you're paying an extra $200, $300 a month, you could be saving yourself long term, or profiting long term tens and maybe possibly hundreds of thousands of dollars by making that move and going forward.
Right. So essentially you would have 4 different mortgages, but it's depending, we talk about more leverage here, depending how you leverage those 4 properties, versus pretty much saying that you can make a, you know, a substantial amount of profit if you're actually leveraging the properties correctly, and probably at that point you'd probably have some tenants or something that you're going to have staying in the house. The different houses, if you do want to, you know, use real estate as an investment option, of course, which it always has been pretty lucrative for a lot of people. It just depends how far.
It depends on your own plan and your own goals.
The plan, yeah, because that's definitely something that you want to have in mind, like we talked about before. Even then, even with just buying one home, if you're going to purchase and invest in real estate, you definitely want to have a plan to, you know, where you're going to spend your money, you put your assets, of course. You have to take into consideration sometimes if tenants are going to be gone and things of that nature. And then you brought up the financial situation of it. I don't think we touched about before how we talked about, you know, buying down interest when you're putting more down, of course, over 50%. So
definitely.
That kind of goes along the lines of what you were saying.
Definitely. And actually, you kind of said something that brings something to mind about, you know, when you're just buying one property. So if your goal is to buy one property, you have probably a property in mind.
Right.
So this is something I see all the time, and I think it's important to understand and be okay with. You know, if you have a property in mind and you don't qualify for something that looks like that, that is okay, and you might not be there yet. It is okay to lower your expectations. Because the alternative is keeping those expectations high, running around with an agent, putting in offer after offer, and not getting anything accepted, getting, you know, tired of the whole process, and then quitting. And then, you know, then you don't have any property, and, you know, you're kind of stuck, still renting. But if if you're in this situation where you're not loving the first property, understand that this might just be the first step. A starter home is okay. The term starter home has been forgotten. We think about our dream home. you know, it's okay to start with what you don't want because it's going to get you where you want.
As long as you feel, not what you don't want necessarily, but as long as you feel comfortable in the property, of course. But
yeah, you might just have to take a step back and reevaluate and say, you know, like, okay, maybe I'm not quite there yet. But yes, you're right. It does not mean that you have to hate the property. You should definitely have some kind of liking toward it.
Of course. So, and what Marissa's trying to help a lot of people out right now, because if you're gonna search and look for the perfect property, sometimes we're gonna be honest, it just might not exist. You know what I mean? There's not gonna be everything you want on a property. Of course, I wish I could tell you that, you know, for $520,000 you're gonna get a pool with a backyard, huge backyard. You're gonna get the awning, you know what I mean? You're gonna get a 4-bedroom, 2-bath. But as we've seen right now in the real estate market, that's just not the case. And then sometimes waiting longer when you're running around, especially right now, you know, people thought they might get a deal because home prices were gonna lower, and that's not what is happening right now. You know, home prices are still going up with interest rates going up substantially. So like we talked about before, it can only really hurt you in the long run probably if you wait at this point, especially if the interest rates are going to keep going up, because the supply and demand for homes right now is really differentiated. There's still a lot of people that are out looking for homes right now, even if the media tells a lot of people a lot of things, but the market
we're actively here.
The market hasn't slowed down much, so to speak. You know, people are still going to put in offers. You know, offers are getting accepted every week still, whether you like it or not. It's gonna happen. So.
Yeah, and it takes time to build houses, so it's gonna take minimum decades to build enough.
Of course,
houses.
We're getting into other things with new builds. You're starting to get my brain turning, but you know, but we're trying to focus on leveraging today, of course. So, like we kind of talked about, leverage your money with a plan. You know, and if that's not looking at your ideal expectations, understand that right now it might be a little different, especially if you leverage that property and you purchase that property and it has equity later on, then you've made a substantial profit in the home as well, so that's really good as well. And then we talk about, you know, leveraging for contracts, how we leverage for loans. I know Marissa had a couple different definitions than I drew, especially leveraging the tools that we have to utilize throughout our industry, and this is all very important. There's so many things that wrap into leverage, and that's why we're trying to give you, you know, a constant explanation of how to use that leverage. So that's pretty much, I believe that's pretty much all we had for you today. Of course, if we have anything later on, we'll come back to you with another leverage video, because there's, like I said, there's a ton of stuff to talk about. So thank you for joining us today, Marissa.
Thank you for having me.
Of course, and we appreciate you watching. Of course, always like and subscribe. Our information is going to be below the video if you ever need to contact us. So we appreciate you, and have a great. We record this on Father's Day, so if you're a father, have a great Father's Day.
Happy Father's Day.
All right.